100 ballots, likely MVP voters.
Yeah, I should remind everyone, for those who don't know or haven't listened. So, I try to replicate the actual balloting process as closely as possible. It's obviously not the exact same 100 people that vote. And it's obviously not the end of the season, but I get a couple of people from all 30 markets. I get some international people. It's as close an approximation as you can get to what the actual balloting is going to look like at the end of the season. And so Joel Embiid was the only player to be on every ballot. He was in first place. He had 789 total points. However, Nikola Jokic had more first place votes, 45 to 43, and he was only 35 points behind, which is the equivalent of 5 second place votes, because in the NBA scoring system, you get 10 points for first place, 7 points for second place, 5 for third, 3 for fourth, and 1 for fifth. And the reason that matters is because Nikola Jokic was left off of 5 ballots.
Can I offer a quick correction?
Sure.
According to the email you sent us, Embiid had 45 first place votes. Jokic had 43. That's also what you told me yesterday.
Well, it is what I told you yesterday.
And
I said it backwards.
And
good job by me.
I was riding the fence, and I ended up on the Embiid side. I considered changing my vote to
even it up,
to make it tied up, but that would be tampering with the scientific process. So we opted against that.
Thank you for correcting me. I will again apologize to the listeners for being on 90 minutes of sleep. But the point is, those 5 people that left Jokic off the ballot, like, generally this
should be fired.
Well, we'll set that part aside. The 2 of them and Yaz Antetokounmpo, who was a clear third place finisher in the poll, were pretty much unanimous across the wide consensus of people. Top 3 people. So if Nikola Jokic gets onto 5 more ballots by the end of the season, which you would think he would, I would expect both those guys to be on every ballot at the end of the season. This is pretty much a statistical dead heat with 25 games to go in the season. And I think it sets up for what's going to be a pretty fascinating final couple of months with both of these guys on teams that are in the middle of the playoff standings, not teams that are likely to race out to winning the conference, which is sort of one of the benchmarks that you see for how this award's going to be decided. And I think, like last year, it's going to be a pretty hotly contested vote right down to the final day of the season.
Let me say a couple of things. First off, it's often said, especially by Michael Malone, that he doesn't think Jokic gets respect. And one of the things I've always said is, once you've won the MVP, you can't complain about not getting respect. But I will say this 5% is what the Nuggets are angry about. This 5% of the voters who don't have Jokic listed there.
Probably people who live in Nebraska and can't even see him on league pass.
I'm fairly confident that the only Nebraska voter you're speaking to, I had him second on my ballot. I had him second.
I want to see that ballot.
I can confirm Brian had him second on his ballot.
I don't believe you either.
The second thing is just the Curry, who was just heavy, overwhelming leader, like Bontemps had never seen before in December. And granted, it's December, but it's not like he's missed 25 games.
Well, I'll stop you there, because when we had this pod back in December, after the first poll came out, what did we say? We said Steph had a historic lead, and it would take a series of things happening in sequence for that to change, right? So what's happened since then? Golden State has come back to the pack. The Suns have rocketed ahead of them into first place in the conference. So there goes one of the checks that Steph would have had. Yeah. Draymond Green gets hurt, right? So Golden State's offense falls off a bit and their team falls off a bit. And on top of that, Steph had probably the worst shooting month of his career in the month of January.
Right.
So you put all those things together, and Steph goes from a historic lead in December to being in a solid 4th place and really completely out of the mix in mid-February.
And now Draymond's up for MVT, most valuable teammate.
Well, that word exists. So teammate of the year, I believe it's called. We talked about in December that as good of a year as Curry was having, he was actually operating below his numbers from last year.
Right.
Although remember, early in the season, everybody's shooting seemed to be down.
Yeah.
Well, now he's way below. He's having one of the worst shooting seasons of his career.
And he has had a huge February, and I suspect those numbers are going to come back up. But it's coming off a month of January where he shot around 30% from three and had a bunch of bad games.
Well, and the only guy within even shouting distance of him in that poll was KD, and obviously things have gone haywire in Brooklyn.
That's right.
With him getting hurt, them losing a ton of games. He's missed. Not to offend Wendy's sensibilities, but Durant's clearly missed too much time to be an MVP candidate.
And the crazy thing is Joel Embiid had one vote in the first poll, had one fifth place vote, and now is in first.
And it's interesting that the two top candidates are fifth in the East, sixth in the West. And correct me if I'm wrong, but Russ is the only MVP winner who's been a bottom half of the playoff pack seed. That
is not today's trivia question, but I do believe that is correct. Certainly in recent memory, you have to be on a very good team to be in contention.
Typically. So between 2000, what year did Westbrook win it? I think he won
2017 was the first year of the poll.
Okay, so Westbrook won it in 17, the year after Durant left for Golden State. Between, I believe, like 82 or 83, Moses Malone won it twice in there. Between then and 2017, there hadn't been an MVP on a team that hadn't won 50 games.
Yeah.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus.